Light-filled and loosely painted, Turner's late works are the subject of a thrilling exhibition at Tate Britain in London. They range from 1835 to 1851, the year Turner died at the age of 76, and they represent the period of his greatest creative flowering. Turner fans are in luck. A new biopic by director Mike Leigh is about to open in cinemas across the United Kingdom. Like this exhibition, the film, Mr. Turner, focuses on the artist's later years. However, it looks not only at the paintings, but at the man himself. Turner the artist was inspired, daring, prolific. Turner the man could be erratic and selfish.
I am struck by the column of bright white placed precisely off-centre here.
Blue balls!
Eh?
Up in the muslin. Knock them out.
I didn't put them there.
I read the biography of Turner and I suddenly started to think, here is a guy who absolutely qualifies for being the main character in a Mike Leigh film. He was very enigmatic, he's very complex, honest but dishonest, totally truthful and thoroughly disingenuous, an absolute embracer of the truth who is in denial on occasions about his children.
Good day to you, sir.
And a very good day to you, Mrs. D.
And how do we find you on this fair morning?
Exceedingly preoccupied, madam.
Was ever thus? You've always been preoccupied. You're too preoccupied for your own good, sir. Evelina, Georgina, come and greet your father.
Good day, Father.
Mike Leigh's film is the latest in a long line of artist biopics, from Charles Laughton's 1936 take on Rembrandt to Charlton Heston's turn as Michelangelo in The Agony and the Ecstasy, or more recent hits such as The Girl with the Pearl Earring, or Selma Hayek's acclaimed portrayal of Frida Kahlo. Timothy Spall, who plays Turner in this film, took painting lessons for more than 2 years in preparation for the role. He won over the critics at this year's Cannes Film Festival, where he was awarded Best Actor. But can the cinema ever really capture the psychology and the mystery of painting?
Mike asked me over 2 years ago to work with Tim to basically teach him to paint and to, have some understanding of Turner's method and what it would be like to be a painter at the time.
Does that look like one of the... Yeah.
It's tricky because he's got to act as well, and it's very, very difficult to do.
He almost gave me a foundation course and then taught me how to the basics of oil painting, the basics of drawing, life class, still life, and then we started doing oils, and then I copied the full-size Turner, exactly the same size of one of his greatest paintings. So that was over a 2.5 year period. But the first time I had to be seen painting in the film, quite early on, was painting a straight line on a ship. Now, it's bad enough trying to paint a straight line with an oil brush anyway, but when you've got 56 people, a camera watching you do it, and Mike Leigh standing behind you, it's quite a difficult thing to do.
The job was really not to turn Tim into Turner. I mean, Tim did have a famous traumatic moment, having spent months preparing and doing paintings. When he then went into character, and first time he did an improvisation where he actually played Turner, actual painting, he came out of it in a terrible state. I said, "What's the matter?" He said, "Well, I've just realised I'm not Turner." I said, "You don't have to paint Turners, but when we come to it, it will make it possible to look plausible."
I think Timothy Spall portrays precisely the man you imagine Turner was. Lugubrious, gruff, complicated. Leigh does some very interesting things. He uses Turner's sexual behaviour as a window into his personality, which is, of course, reaps dividends. And you see, for example, that he uses his housekeeper miserably. She's just like a sort of nose rag to him, but on the other hand, emotionally stingy and yet fabulously generous to not just various friends financially, but to the nation. There's a wonderful scene where somebody says, "I will buy your collection for £100,000. You can imagine what that Some was. And he just says, I'm afraid I can't, because they don't belong to me, they belong to the nation. But what really takes over is the work itself. And what's fascinating about the movie is that you're often thinking, well, of course, that's a Turner, my goodness, no, it's a real sunset. Or you're thinking, well, clearly that's a real seascape. Oh my goodness, no, that's a Turner. And they mess with that. Dick Pope, the cinematographer, and Mike Leigh mess with that all the time. And the work comes to the fore all the way through the film. And you never for a second believe that a man as gruff and difficult wasn't capable of making that kind of beautiful work. One of the many challenges in making a biopic is to not turn the artist into a cartoon character. And one of the things that Leigh does particularly well is he doesn't try for a second to get under the skin of Turner. And this is the mistake that a lot of filmmakers make. Really the nadir of that kind of filmmaking, I think, is the movie about Jackson Pollock, which stars Ed Harris as Pollock. Brilliant performance. But there's a moment when Pollock actually spills paint, plop. And Lee Krasner, his wife, walks past and says, Jackson, you've really cracked it. You can't quite believe you've just seen that. And what happens when they're reduced to those sort of cartoonish moments, these sorts of people, is that paradoxically you feel further away from that person than you have ever felt. I think that Mike Leigh, I've never felt he was a particularly deep director. I'm not sure whether he would describe himself as that. One of the things he does brilliantly well, and my favourite film before this one that he'd made is Topsy Turvy, about Gilbert and Sullivan. And what he did brilliantly in that and brilliantly in this is show how these people work. Because he knows instinctively, as a director, that people are interested in how people work, whether they're a shop girl, whether they're a cabbie, whether they're a microphysicist, whether they're a genius painter, or whether they're a composer. What do they do? What does that mean? So of course here we have Spall spitting at the canvas and rubbing this and bringing back paintings years later to add another little piece here and there, and that, all that sort of stuff, which is essentially a sort of pedagogic approach. That is what Leigh is absolutely brilliant at, and paradoxically it builds into feeling like an incredibly deep film.
Mike Leigh's remarkable film and this superb exhibition enrich each other enormously. But in the end, however much the cinema can tell us about an artist's life or processes of work, I believe there's only one thing to do: look at the pictures.